In this episode, we are going to be reviewing Broken English from 2007. This was written and directed by Zoe Cassavetes, and it starred Parker Posey, Melvil Poupaud, Gena Rowlands, and Drea De Matteo. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore movies from all over the world and talk about how those stories were told on film. Very special guest today. I want to welcome actor Maria Din. She has acted in theater productions all over Canada, and she has also appeared in a lot of short films, web series, feature films, and TV shows such as Republic of Doyle, The Listener, Hemlock Grove, The Border, among many others. So Maria, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Anytime. This is an interesting. I know we were discussing some different options of a films to focus on, and this is a movie I've actually meant to see for a while because I love John Cassavetes, Zoe Cassavetes' father, and Gena Rowlands is one of my favorite actors, and she's in this. So I'm really glad I saw it because I liked it a lot. And I was curious, did you see this when it came out or when did you first see it?
No, I was scrolling around on all the Apple movies that were on my computer, and I love Parker Posey, and that's why I downloaded it. I bought it right away, and so I've seen it a million times.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good to hear. And what did you initially think, and has it evolved with repeat viewings?
Yeah, my relationship, I think, has changed to it. I love to watch movies over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, me too.
And it changes, depends on what's going on in my life. And my expectation going into it, because it was Parker Posey and I saw her more as a comedic actor, that's what I was kind of expecting, sort of a rom-com kind of feel to it. But it's much heavier and darker than that. And it's one of my favorite performances of hers of all time.
She was brilliant at it.
Yeah, she's a great actress for sure.
Yeah, I just thought, because that's my experience of her as well, is like someone who's really, really funny, and she is funny in this, but it's not like over the top broad humor or anything. Like it's very organic. Like even the situations, like the various dates that she goes on with the various men, like like they were funny when they went badly, but I think in a more conventional film they would have probably made those dates like so over the top and in terms of like how bad these days went, but they just went bad enough that you felt that could have been you, or that could have, or that, and it was you, or someone who's been in this situation. So it was just very, very real. But I thought she was sort of like sweet and insecure, and the loneliness, the sadness, the desperation at times. I mean, it was a really wide range, I felt.
Yeah, she really was so vulnerable in this character and was just such an open wound. And she made me empathize with her in a way that I'd never really empathized with other characters. And I love Parker Posey. The nuance in this that she creates, the intimacy that she has with the camera and with the other characters, it's beautiful. Like, yeah, it's really beautiful. And I think it's one of those underrated films that not a lot of people know about. And there are some things that I'm not crazy about. We can talk about in the plot and stuff, especially later on in the film. But overall, yeah, she did a fantastic job. And I love the whole backstory of her, dealing with mental illness and her anxiety disorder and that whole thing, and how she never really talks to anybody about it except her lover later on when she sort of is had to face it. It wasn't something that was like the center of the film, that like that she has an anxiety disorder. It was something like off to the side that she was kind of trying to push away and hide, but played such a central role to her obstacles, her character's obstacles throughout, the development of the story. And I love that. I love how it wasn't like, I don't know, it didn't become like a film about mental illness. Not that there's anything wrong with having a film about mental illness, but it was just an aspect of her character.
Yes.
It wasn't like the starring feature of who she was,
Yes.
She was just such a much more dynamic character than that,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought that was great too, because you're right. Like it was a part of her, just like it may be a part of so many people. Well, it is a part of so many people. And I like how they handled it as well. Zoe Cassavetes handled it, because she suddenly panics when she was on the date with the French guy. Yeah. And because she I love that scene, because she ran into, I imagine that was in like an ex-boyfriend or someone that she had gone out with. And
That's
then
right.
the guy she was dating was suddenly very quiet, like he seemed jealous, like she was trying to explain, and then she just runs off. And I love that, was brilliantly acted. She takes a pill, I suppose, to calm herself down. And I could understand why he would have thought, are you gonna try to kill yourself? And she, she was like, I'm not trying to kill myself. I just need to calm down. So yeah. It played like in this, and I love movies that can just make you laugh, but also make you cry at the same time, because like I felt bad that I was laughing, but I couldn't help. It was the way that she reacted it was so real and so dark, but at the same time, there was something funny about the fact that she had to explain to herself, to this guy, that she's not going to kill herself.
Such a high crisis situation, the stakes were so high, and she never, their relationship was so new, and she had to deal with this thing. It was such an urgent moment. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And those are usually how those things often, I don't know often, but those situations come out like that, where it's like she was at the point where she had no choice but to reveal, like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is a condition that I have, and I'm faced with it. And normally when you're starting relationships, you sort of pick and choose, like, when do I disclose this?
Right.
When is an appropriate time, and how do I keep myself as attractive as possible to this person before I have to show the sides of myself that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. And it was a great moment where she was put in a position where she had to disclose. She was forced to disclose everything right away.
Yeah, because of the panic. Like when you have a panic attack, like you can't hide it. You can't just put a smile. Like if you have some mild anxiety, let's say. I also like that it wasn't spelled out as to why that attack came out. Like it was sort of, I got the impression that she was afraid he was going to leave, and then because she was developing feelings for him, that she thought, oh my god, now he might leave because now he saw me with this other guy and he looks jealous, and then she just kind of snapped at that moment. Is that what you thought?
That's interesting that you put it that way. I've never talked to anybody about this film before, so it's interesting that you interpreted Julian's reaction to her awkwardness and increasing anxiety as you saw his reaction as jealousy about the other guy. I thought he was weirded out that she was being so elusive and so weird.
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it, because if you remember when they ran into Bobby in the corner store.
Yes.
And Parker Posey's character, Nora, she was so open and cool and like, yes, Bobby, come and hang out with us. So that was totally fine. But here she was totally caught off guard because she was, in this passionate kiss with Julian. And then all of a sudden Guy was there, and it was such an awkward moment. God, I've been in that moment where you're just not expecting somebody to come up in a public situation, and it's all of a sudden feels so So
Yeah,
awkward.
it's so awkward. Yeah, actually, I think that actually makes more sense in hindsight, because it was for because the way she kept explaining who this guy was. Yeah, I could, because Julian didn't strike me as someone who would suddenly get so jealous just because she ran into someone who she may have gone out with before, because he
And
was
he
a
said,
pretty
I'm not mad. Remember when they were sitting down? He said, I'm not
right,
mad at you. I'm okay.
right.
I'm not mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, my heart broke for her
Oh
in
yeah,
that
no,
moment.
no, definitely. That was such a powerful moment. What do you see this film as being truly about? What do you take from it?
I think it's about a woman who is um, really stuck in her life. She's unhappy in her career. Um, she is lonely and wants to find a relationship that's meaningful. She feels like, I hate this expression, like the clock is ticking.
Right.
Like, and I don't know if she wants to have kids or whatever, but she wants, she's not in the place where she wants her life to be. And um her best friend is married and in this, seemingly great relationship, or at least Nora's mother thinks so. And Nora's just not in that place. And she's just really unhappy in her life. And I think it's about facing uncertainty. I think it's about stepping out of your comfort zone. She was in New York. She'd never been out of the country. She was paralyzed with all of these fears. She has this anxiety disorder. And here is this guy that she meets, that she has this great connection with, beautiful chemistry. And he's from France. And it's like, what are the chances? Like, can she not catch a break? And then we see her over and over and over again in all these relationships, or
Yeah.
not even relationships, these guys that she's hooking up with, like desperately trying to create a connection with one of them. And then the one guy that she just really hits it off with, is flying back to Paris tomorrow.
Right.
And so
Of course.
they have one great weekend together.
Yeah.
And then she's really faced with, what are you going to do? Now you have this opportunity. Are you going to chase it? And it's only been one weekend. She has no idea
Mm,
if it's going to turn out well or not.
right.
Would you
Yeah.
have gone to Paris?
I don't know. It's a good question. It dropped everything because you felt like such a strong connection. It's very tough because she's realistic, right? So it's like she didn't strike me as someone who just is like, I'm just gonna drop everything because I feel that that's the right thing to do. So I can
Mm.
understand her position. I don't know if I would do it. I mean, maybe if I was in my early 20s. It's a tough one. I don't know about you.
I would go. I think I would go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she hated her job.
Yeah, that's true.
She really liked this guy. Why not? Why
Yeah.
not just go and see? She can always come back.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, she's never been out of the country. I mean, this is her opportunity. This is a reason for her to go and
Yeah.
try.
Yeah. And I liked how they handled when she met Julian. Like it wasn't just like, I suppose this is like a more realistic take on a you know romantic comedy, because often the romantic comedies, well, not just romantic comedies, but a lot of like more conventional films are, they're very cut and dry, they're very simplistic, everyone's like a quote unquote type. And when we meet Julian, like he seems a little aggressive, like he's sort of like, he's like, you know like he wasn't he was borderline harassing her, I suppose, but he was like really coming on to her. And um he's pushy and stuff, but you just got the sense that he wouldn't, overstep his bounds too much.
No,
But
he
then
was a
when they're,
nice guy. You really got the
yeah,
sense that he was a sweet guy, and he was new in New York and he wanted to have a great evening, and he was attracted to her, and he was flirting with her. I mean, he
Yeah.
was, yeah, and he was solely interested in her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very charming. I
Yeah.
love that
No, for
actor too.
sure.
He's great.
For sure. And I just really appreciated that right away. We didn't just know he was like, you know, King Charming, like
Oh
it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
you
yeah.
were like, at least for me, I was a little like, I don't know, he's coming out a little strong. What's he gonna do? And I like how even at their apartment, when she falls asleep and the other guy leaves and then he stays and then he just shuts the light off. And I'm thinking, oh God, what's he gonna do? And then he didn't,
Yeah.
of course, he didn't do anything. But I think she was sort of, Zoe Cassavetes was sort of making the audience second guess this guy. I don't know if that was your
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah, I can see that, especially after all of her having one bad break after another with all of these other guys. We didn't really know who Julian was. There was all this mystery around
Yeah.
him and what was going to
Yeah.
happen. And so when he was still there the next morning and she wakes up like all sort of hungover and like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're still here. Um, yeah, that was sweet. And he was like, do you want to hang out? Do you want to keep this? Yeah, and he didn't have to sleep with her. It wasn't about sex. It was
Right.
just about him getting to know her, which was very sweet. And of course that really spoke to her because she felt like every other guy just wanted to have sex with her, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that was another really interesting element of the film is because I felt that she felt, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, is that she was often made to feel that she couldn't just be herself, that people wouldn't just appreciate her or love her for who she is. Like right off
Yeah.
the top, like at this anniversary party,
Mm,
for Drea De Matteo and her husband. And of course, everyone just sees the surface of things and it's like, oh, he's got such a good job. And, why can't you meet someone like this? Like
oh
Gena
my
Rowlands.
God.
Yeah. Says,
Nora's
so,
mother.
yeah, Jenna, of course, she was so good in it. Um,
Yeah.
she says something along those lines. And, even when she goes out with that actor at first and she's like, oh, okay, I can share this news because people can, I have something to tell someone. And right away, it's like, hey, toast to the new boyfriend and stuff. And it's like she went out
Yeah.
with him like once, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's like, is this Mr., is this the right guy? Is this Mr. Right? So and life is so much like that because often people feel that they're not going to just be seen. It's like, unless they have some like gold medal around their neck to share, everyone's just going to criticize them.
Hmm.
And that I think that was really feeding into, her insecurities, her feelings of self-worth. And, she's like mid 30s, mid to late 30s. So like, as you said, like clock, quote unquote clock is ticking. Like no one's going to want me once I'm
Hmm.
a little bit older. And I thought that was, I haven't seen that in, particularly from a female perspective, in a lot of movies, because it's not something we don't see as much, and it's a shame because it makes for, a great story and for characters that is universal. Like everyone can relate to that, I feel.
Hmm. Yeah. Just
I don't know
being
if
in
those
that.
things popped out to you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I loved her relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
That complicated relationship of her mother being kind of ugh, like such a stereotypical mom in many ways. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
um and Nora was such a sweet girl, like just like, visibly irritated by the stuff that was coming out of her mother's mouth, and yet, you know, still showing up for her mom. And I think she wanted all the things that her mother wants for her as well. She wants to have a relationship and to be settled down and to like she said in the film, know that somebody loves me, that type of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Right. But what's interesting is that on the flip side, everyone's looking at Drea De Matteo as someone who has it all, like the husband with the good job and money and security. There's like a little, someone at that anniversary party says, "Hey, when are the kids coming?" Of course, it's like that pressure all the
Yeah.
time for women to have children. And everyone's like admires this woman, but then the flip side is that everything that she has, which Parker Posey wants, she's not happy with. Like her marriage is not going well with this guy. He works a lot here, he's distant, and he, as she mentions later, like he's hesitant about having kids. So that's another thing I really appreciated, was that people, we value so much of the surface of what people have, but we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. But it's as if only the surface matters.
Yeah.
You're set for life, so it's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like that, because I think, again, in a more conventional film, Drea De Matteo's character would have maybe been the supportive friend, to Parker Posey, and it would have been a little more, one dimensional. But it didn't go deep into her life. Obviously, it's about the Parker Posey's character, but I like that we did get a really more of an inside look into who she was. Even when she goes to Paris first, she meets this guy there, and she takes off her wedding ring, and like they go to lunch together, and you're not too sure if anything happened. I don't think anything happened, but then she's like crying in the washroom in the hotel, so maybe just the guilt of it, perhaps, that she even went to lunch with this guy, or
Is that how you interpreted that moment when she was crying in the bathroom?
Yeah, I thought perhaps she felt, either guilty, or maybe it scared her that she had just done it, or that she had wanted to do it, or that she maybe enjoyed it, because she's thinking, "Oh
I
my God, I don't know what you
my
thought."
my interpretation was, I thought she was depressed about the fact that her marriage was not good, that she wasn't totally in love with her husband. Um, and I thought she felt, I don't know. I mean, it's hard, it's complicated, right? And maybe we're not supposed to know exactly what, but that's something that I really love about this film
It's
is
very
how,
subjective.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of subjective things that you never really get clarity on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Well,
intention of
those
the
are the kind
character.
of movies I like the most, because it's not just spelled out. Like, again, in a more conventional film, because Hollywood films, they rarely want to confuse the audience in any way. They want everything to just be, this means this means that, this means that, and here's the conclusion. But here, there's, the motivations are not always so clear cut, and life things are not always clear cut either. Like, things are complicated, people are complicated. So yeah, but movies like that, because we can see them again and again and again, and we can just keep going deeper and deeper, because the meaning is never static. So maybe I'll see it again, and I'll see something like totally different, or I'll come up with a different interpretation to these motives, and things like that. But that's what I really appreciated about it. The only thing I didn't understand in France was that Drea De Matteo, she was like delivering something to this guy. It looked like there was like cash in it. And then she
Yeah.
lied later to Parker Posey, that she's like, "Oh, it's just like some business files." And then I was like, what was she? I don't even know. I don't know if that was that not, I don't know. Did they bring up what that was about?
No, I did not. I've
Yeah, I didn't
never
get that
understood
either.
that. And I've seen it a million times. I've never understood that moment.
Yeah.
Um, what did you think? Because there was a huge switch from New York to Paris, it was like a whole other um I mean, it's a new setting, but it's like the film takes a major turn when she goes to Paris, and then we're introduced to all these new characters who just sort of come in and out of
Yeah.
their both of the girls' lives as they're going through their trip, and we don't really get any kind of closure or wrap up with storylines about these characters that come in and out, like all the people the men that Parker Posey meets, or how did you feel about all those new characters at the end of the movie? Did you feel like it was too much, or did it seem?
No, I didn't think. No, I didn't think it was too much at all. Because naturally she was, in Paris alone at certain points. So naturally, you're going to bump into people, right, or meet people. I don't think Cassavetes wanted her to just be walking the streets alone. Obviously, she wanted some kind of encounters. No, I thought they were interesting. It was just interesting, just in terms of like how people were like the French men are a little more forward, right? Like like she's in this museum and this guy's like, "Hey, just come have coffee with us," and that's true. Like I've been to Paris and I know that women who have gone, like my wife went there as well, and she actually mentioned that just culturally speaking, the men are a little more like freer, whereas I suppose in Canada or maybe in America as well, I don't know as well as much, but people are a little more reserved, a little more cautious, or a little more polite. So I just thought that culturally speaking, it was interesting to see that. And then that older guy she meets, you know, it was interesting because she keeps failing to find Julian. Like she lost his phone number, and she can't find him. And I actually thought it was going to end that she doesn't find him, particularly when that guy she meets in the bar says, "Well, I think you need to find happiness first." So I thought, okay, it's going to sum up where she's going to go within herself, and maybe optimistic in the fact that she has to maybe look at herself first before she can fall in love with someone else. And of course, she does see him. But what I liked about that scene is that it made me then wonder if that's what she needed. Does she need to first look within herself before she can be with someone else, or does that not matter? Is that we're never like, are we ever like totally fine? Like why does that need a requirement for her to like be with this guy? So I don't that's what I took from that. So I liked it. I don't know how you felt about those encounters.
I'm sort of I'm not sure. I thought there was a lot of secondary characters that were introduced both in New York and in Paris that I felt like, I don't know, would it have I don't think in like a typical mainstream Hollywood film it would have went down that way, right? Like you wouldn't
No,
have been thrown these random people coming in and out. And it certainly
no,
added more texture and dynamic and possibilities and
exactly.
uncertainty throughout the film. What I loved about the New York setting and the Paris setting is how it was shot. So many rom-coms are shot in New York City, and New York City has like, it's all the staple images that we see of like just those, very New York type shots. And it has like
More
a,
glamorous and sunny, you mean? Like,
yes, more Disney kind of a feel of
yeah.
like, this is what it's it like one of my favorite rom-coms ever, When Harry Met Sally.
Right. Yeah.
Which I totally loved
I
that
love it
film.
too.
Yeah, but there are so many rom-coms after that that used New York as a backdrop, and this film, it's very much New York, but it's so much more intimate. They never do these like big wide shots of like the just those classic New York staple images that
I
make
know
us
what
go,
you
that's
mean.
New York, and they
Yeah.
did the same thing in Paris, right? It was
Yeah.
like very intimate and tight all
It
the
was
time.
much less romantic, and it was more like
Yes.
gray. And
Yes, it was very gray, very
yeah, and I
gray.
like how it was like raining in Paris. Like they're like walking, they're like, "Oh my God, we
Yeah.
come to Paris. It's nothing. This poor woman only has bad luck."
Hmm.
But it's a really good point. And because yeah, often these cities they are romantic, but there is a flip side to them where it's like what's the difference between someone's problems in New York or Toronto or Cleveland, right? Like your problems will follow you, like no matter what. Not that fresh starts don't necessarily make a difference, but I like that as well. Like it didn't have any kind of slickness to it, or that her, because she's in some kind of environment like New York or Paris, that's incredible within itself. Like yeah, that did pop out to me too, because I know what you mean, particularly in this genre. They make these cities pop, the aesthetic pop, and look so beautiful. And they really didn't here. And I remember when I was in Paris, I think it rained one day as well. And one of the streets they were walking down, I remember, I forget what it's called, but I remember being there. And it kind of dawned on me as well, because I always romanticize those cities and London. You know, I lived in London for a couple of years, and not that they're not great, but then, you know, you then are like, wow, actually the grass is not greener. I still have my problems here.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that really stood out to me as well.
I haven't mentioned this. It's one of my favorite scenes is the character Charlie Ross, played by Josh Hamilton. It's Nora's mom sets Nora up on a blind date with her friend's son, Charlie Ross. And they go and they see an old romantic movie. Yeah. And Charlie has such promise, and we have our fingers crossed that this seems to be really working out. And Nora seems so calm, and so, you know, everyone's receiving each other so well. And then Charlie's ex-girlfriend or ex-wife shows up, Jennifer, and
it was so awkward.
Yeah, it was just such a tornado, just started spinning through. And I loved how they handled it. I loved how the whole date just like crumbled so quickly.
Yeah.
When Jennifer showed up.
Yeah, me too. And again, it was a case of where the humor of it was just so real. Like it wasn't like, let's try to broaden this, where maybe those, you know, two people would get into like some kind of huge argument. I mean, they do get into an argument, but it wasn't like, you know, over the top or, you know, ridiculous or something. It was kind of like, hey, can I talk to you in the corner? Like what people would do. It's like, you know, let's not get into a huge fight. And he just like calmly tells Parker Posey, he's like, well, I actually think I'm still in love with her, and we just broke up. And he's like so nice about it too. He's like, he's like, you were really nice. It's too bad, you know. And what else could she say? You know, it's not. And I think as an actor myself, I don't know about you, but sometimes we may kind of want to show that we're like pissed off in a moment like that. But she kind of does what you would do in life. It's like, okay, well, that's okay. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. You really see her sort of. You see her heart drop, but she's still like presenting well, like, you really know, I'm gonna finish off this date as I should. Thank you so much. And okay, bye. Like, it I don't know, it just seems so realistic and played out so well. And
that's exactly how I felt. And I also really like the scene where she's having a bath with Julian, and she's sort of like these great close-ups, because she looks like really concerned, and she's like, what does this mean? And he's like, there's no contract, we're just, you know. I just thought, oh my God. And I know I've felt that way, you know, if I really like someone early on. And I've also, you know, been early in relationships where, you know, someone's also been like, well, where are we heading? Where are we going on like a third date? But I've been on both sides of it, right? So I totally understood. And even the you know, the sex scenes are not like, you know, really raunchy or sex. They're just really realistic, you know. Like, I mean, it's not like they were graphic or anything. It was just, you know, it's like, this is their first encounter, and now she's worried because she's feeling for this guy. And
I love that scene of her in the tub. They did such a nice close up of her face, and with him there, like, you know, she's leaning against him, And you could see her anxiety just growing and growing, and the thoughts in her head. And even though she said so little, but you see people, don't you? Of course you do. What is this? What are we doing here? Like, you could see the you could see all the subtext, in her
Yeah,
face. It was beautiful. She's fantastic
that was really well
actress.
done. Because, like I said, this is what I hate about Hollywood films, is that they make you feel as though these problems are simple, right? And that, like, oh, if you just meet Prince Charming, everything will be fine. It's like, no, but like, that's not, because you still have perhaps your hangups, and he has his hangups and his baggage, and things like
And
that.
it
So
wasn't resolved, right? Like Julian
no,
just said, I don't know, we're just meeting each other, we're just getting to know each other. And she just had to continue on in the uncertainty of
yeah,
getting to know somebody.
yeah,
Yeah, which
exactly.
I think that's one of the big themes of this film, is dealing with uncertainty and,
Yes.
walking into uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking at some of the reviews last night. What really annoyed me, and some critics just pissed me off, it's like, just because, yeah, I understand that the end is like very, like, it's very much the way Before Sunset ends. Which, have you seen Before Sunset?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, but who cares? I mean, it's, so what? Because, I mean, lots of films resemble one another. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, I mean, it is similar in terms of like the problem she has that you saw with both Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke in Before Sunset, but it's very, very different. And yeah, I mean, sure enough, yeah, it's, at the end, she's about to jump on the plane and she runs into him. And so the dilemma is, do I miss my flight and stay? Which is the same as Ethan Hawke. Like, is he going to stay, or is he going to miss his flight in Before Sunset? But that seemed to be, everyone was just picking on that. And I'm
I've
like,
seen that film, but
yeah,
that never occurred to me before. I see you know, the similarities between them, but I don't think of them as similar films at all.
no, not, no, no. Yeah. I mean, not at all. I mean, like I said, like, yeah, their problems may have mirrored one another in some ways, but it's very different. I mean, that's a film about these two people who, like, totally fell in love, or like kindred spirits, and then the next 10 years we're trying to find ways to get over one another. And this is about a woman who's like dealing with loneliness and her insecurities, and trying to um, find happiness and love. I mean, it's so different. And just some critics were just picking on the fact that the ending was, and I was like, what a shame, because you had a portrait of a woman that was so universal and so relatable and so complicated. And I just thought, why, I don't understand why people just pick on, it's almost as if they want to be negative. I hope this, because you're right. I don't think this film is very well known. And I hope more people discover it, because it's like I said, it's a fantastic movie. It reminded me, because have you seen because her father, John Cassavetes, is, my favorite filmmaker. Have you, it reminded me in a sense, not that he wrote a story like this, but his films were always, hopeful. And this film is very hopeful as well. So I wondered if she maybe was somewhat influenced by that. I don't know if have you seen many of her father's films, like A Woman Under the Influence, or
No, I haven't. What other ones has he done?
he made about 15 films. He did a film called Shadows. And with his wife, Opening Night, he did Minnie and he did, sorry, with his wife, he did a film called Opening Night and Minnie and Moskowitz, which is another like take on a romantic comedy, more realistic take on a romantic there are some scenes in this that are similar, where that's Gena Rowlands is the main character, and she also goes to see like a romantic movie, and like you saw on The Date, it was also with Bogart, and you saw that on The Date that Parker Posey goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a film called The Gloria, The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Faces, but he often explored the husbands is another one. Regular people, middle class people, and complex human relationship. So it's interesting to now see Zoe Cassavetes take on similar people, but that they're just ordinary people. They're not, hitmen or movie stars or whatever, like, or not, or particularly not cut and dry, like as we've been discussing. These portraits are really complicated. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to go through his filmography, I think, because if you like this, you'll definitely like her dad's films as well. Yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out.
But yeah, you can see it. For anyone who hasn't seen it, you can see this on Tubi for free. Highly recommend it. And I hope, like I said, I hope it finds more of a following at some point, because I think it's largely unknown. So Maria, well, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate that you took the time to not only discuss the film, but also suggest we do it, because I'm not sure when I would have got to it. So thanks again.
Oh, it was fun. Thank you.
If people want to follow what you're doing as an actor, where's the best place for people to follow you on social media?
Social media, I guess just Instagram. You can follow me at Career Creativity.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I see that on your Instagram here. Yeah, Career Creativity. Okay, cool. So I will leave the link to follow Maria's Instagram in the description box below. So Maria, thanks again. Please come again sometime.
Love to.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is a great way for content creators like myself to earn an additional income, which will give me more flexibility in my schedule to do even more videos per week on YouTube, which of course is absolutely free to view. So if you like my work, head over to Patreon and you can find out how you can support me there. Patreon is bonus content that I create month in and month out, and it is based on polls that I put out at the beginning of every single month, which you, of course, have access to vote on, which means that you will be very much a part of the decision-making as to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So if you're interested, head over to the link. If you are currently listening to this on the audio version of my podcast and you've run out of episodes to listen to, head over to the YouTube channel where every single episode that I've ever recorded can be found, youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to my channel by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes or when I go live. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.